The star maps of the Galactic Council showed danger zones in red. Most sectors had small red dots marking asteroid fields or dying stars, but one sector was completely red. Sector 7 Alpha contained a yellow star called Sol, and around it orbited a blue-green planet that nobody was allowed to visit. High Admiral Zephys stood before the massive holographic display in his command center. His four arms moved across the controls as he studied the forbidden sector. The Veltar warrior was 8 feet tall, covered in biomechanical armor that gleamed like black metal. His race had conquered 47 star systems. They were the strongest military force in this part of the galaxy. "Admiral," his aide said, walking up to him. "The Council has sent another warning about Sector 7 Alpha. They say we must stay away from the planet called Earth." Zephys made a sound like laughing, but deeper and more threatening. "The Council is weak. They see danger where we see opportunity. What could a primitive world possibly do to the mighty Veltar?" The aide pulled up the official warnings on his tablet. "Sir, 3 expeditions have disappeared near that planet. The last transmission from Captain Vexhi's fleet was just screaming. Then nothing." "Vexhi was a fool," Zephys said. He waved one of his arms and the display zoomed in on Earth. "Look at this world. No energy shields around the planet. No massive defense stations. These humans still use chemical rockets to leave their atmosphere. They are barely more advanced than the primitive species we conquered on Nextor." The automated warning systems kicked in as they looked at Earth's data. A mechanical voice spoke in the common galactic language. "Warning. This system contains an apex predator species. All ships must maintain distance of 50 light-years minimum. Approach prohibited by Council Directive 2847. Violation punishable by exile to the dark regions." Zephys turned off the warning with an angry gesture. "Apex predators? These humans fight each other with projectile weapons. They have not even learned to harness quantum energy properly. The Council spreads these lies to keep the valuable resources of Earth for themselves." His aide looked nervous. "But sir, the warnings come from 17 different species. Even the Hive Queens agree that—" "The Hive Queens are insects," Zephys interrupted. "They fear everything that moves. And the other species? They are jealous of Veltar's strength. They want to stop us from claiming the riches of this untouched world." Zephys walked to the viewing window of his flagship. Outside, the Veltar fleet floated in perfect formation. 12 massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying a small moon. 48 frigates armed with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. 200,000 Veltar warriors, each one enhanced with computer implants and molecular weapons. No force in the galaxy could stand against them. "Prepare the fleet for Operation Harvest," Zephys commanded. "We will show the galaxy what happens when they try to keep secrets from the Veltar supremacy." The aide hesitated. "Admiral, perhaps we should ask the Council for permission first. The penalties for entering the Forbidden Zone are—" Zephys grabbed the smaller alien with 2 of his arms and lifted him off the ground. "The Council serves us, not the other way around. We took their precious trade routes. We conquered their strongest allies. Now we will take this mysterious Earth and prove that the Veltar fear nothing." He dropped the aide and activated the fleet communication system. His voice boomed across 200 ships. "Warriors of the Supremacy. For too long the weak Council has told us where we can and cannot go. They claim a primitive world is too dangerous for us to visit. Today we prove them wrong. Today we claim Earth for the glory of the Veltar." The response was immediate. Thousands of warriors roared their approval across the communication channels. Weapon systems powered up. Engines began to warm for the jump to hyperspace. But as the fleet prepared to leave, more warnings came through subspace. The messages arrived in dozens of languages from species across the galaxy. "Do not go to Earth. Turn back while you still can. The humans are not what they appear to be. Protect your people. We beg you, Veltar, listen to those who tried before you." Zephys deleted each message without reading it completely. Weakness disgusted him. Fear disgusted him. The Veltar had not become the masters of 47 worlds by listening to cowards. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "the hyperspace calculations are complete. We can reach the Sol system in 6 standard days. Then we leave immediately. Zephys ordered. And send a message to the Council. Tell them that when we return, Earth will belong to the Veltar supremacy. The fleet jumped to hyperspace in a flash of blue light. Behind them, automated beacons continued to broadcast their warnings into empty space. As they traveled through hyperspace, Zephys studied everything the Council databases contained about Earth. The information was limited, but what he saw only confirmed his beliefs. The humans were divided into separate nations that often fought each other. Their technology was primitive. Their weapons used chemical explosions and simple projectiles. They had barely begun to explore their own star system. "Look at this," he told his officers, showing them images of human cities. "They build straight up into the air instead of underground like intelligent species. They have no protection from orbital bombardment. Their military uses wheeled vehicles that move along the ground. Even the weakest Veltar patrol could conquer their largest army." His weapons officer nodded agreement. "Their space stations are tiny, Admiral. Our smallest frigate carries more firepower than their entire orbital infrastructure. And their population," added the intelligence officer. "Over 7 billion humans crowded onto one small world. They will make excellent slaves once we demonstrate our superiority." Zephys felt satisfaction growing in his chest. Earth would be the greatest conquest in Veltar history. Not only would they gain a rich world full of resources, but they would prove that the Council's warnings were meaningless. Other species would see that the Veltar could go anywhere and take anything they wanted. On the 4th day of their journey, they received one final transmission. It came from an old hive queen whose species had been among the first to encounter humans centuries ago. "Please, Admiral Zephys," the transmission said. "I am old and have seen many wars. I have watched strong species become extinct overnight. The humans seem weak and divided, but this is how they hunt. They appear harmless until it is too late. My hive lost 3 million warriors learning this truth. Do not make the same mistake." Zephys turned off the transmission before it finished. He had heard enough whining from inferior species. 2 more days to Earth," he announced to his fleet. "Prepare all weapons. Ready the invasion troops. The humans will learn to fear the Veltar." Name. But as his ships moved through hyperspace toward the Sol system, long-range sensors were already tracking their approach. On Earth, in command centers buried deep beneath mountains and ocean floors, alarms began to sound. Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force looked at the sensor readings and shook her head sadly. "How many ships?" she asked. 200, ma'am," her aide replied. "Looks like a full battle fleet." Chen sighed. "Send the final warning on all frequencies. Tell them they have one chance to turn around. And if they don't listen?" Chen looked out at the blue sky above Earth through the command center's reinforced windows. Somewhere up there, hidden among the stars and planets, humanity's true defenses waited silently. "Then they'll learn why we put up those warning signs," she said, quietly. "God help them." The Veltar fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Zephys expected to find a quiet solar system with primitive satellites orbiting a backward world. Instead, his sensors immediately detected something that made him pause. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "we're being scanned, multiple sources throughout the system." Zephys looked at the tactical display. Red dots appeared everywhere, around Jupiter near Saturn's moons in the asteroid belt, and in orbit around the blue-green planet called Earth. Hundreds of objects that his computers couldn't identify were pointing sensors directly at his fleet. "How is this possible?" Zephys muttered. "The intelligence report said these humans barely had spaceflight capability. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from Earth." The main screen activated, showing a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. She had short gray hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to look right through Zephys. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You have entered a restricted system despite multiple warnings. This is your final opportunity to leave peacefully. Turn your ships around and go home." Zephys laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Human, you are speaking to High Admiral Zephys of the Veltar Supremacy. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your primitive world will be the 48th. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. You were warned to stay away. Every species in the galaxy tried to tell you. Now you'll learn why. The transmission ended. Zephas stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his weapons officer. Destroy their largest moon. Show these humans what real power looks like. Sir, which weapon should we use? The quantum disruptor. Let them watch their moon. Turn to dust. The flagship's main weapon charged up, building energy that could tear apart the molecular structure of anything it hit. The beam lanced out across space toward Earth's moon. For a moment, Zephas smiled. No species had ever seen their homeworld's moon destroyed and continued to resist. But the beam never reached its target. Something intercepted it halfway there. A field of energy appeared in space, absorbing the quantum disruptor blast completely. The moon continued to orbit Earth as if nothing had happened. Impossible, Zephas whispered. No known technology can stop a quantum disruptor. Admiral, his sensor officer's voice was shaking. I'm detecting energy buildups throughout the system. Whatever they're using to defend themselves, it's bigger than anything in our databases. Before Zephas could respond, space around his fleet erupted in motion. Objects that his sensors had mistaken for asteroids suddenly came to life. What he had thought were natural formations were actually camouflaged weapons platforms. Incoming projectiles, the tactical officer shouted. But these weren't the primitive missiles Zephas expected. The objects moving toward his fleet were traveling at impossible speeds. His computers calculated their velocity and returned numbers that made no sense. Sir, those projectiles are moving at 15% of light speed. That's not possible with chemical propulsion. The first projectile hit the frigate VTS Dominator. The tungsten rod, no bigger than a telephone pole, punched through the ship's quantum shields like they weren't there. It tore through the hull, through the engine room, through the reactor, and out the other side. The frigate exploded in a ball of plasma that lit up the darkness, but the projectile kept going. It hit the cruiser VTS Annihilator next, then the destroyer VTS Subjugator, then finally came to rest buried deep in the hull of a dreadnought. 4 ships destroyed by a single piece of metal. Return fire, Zephas screamed. All weapons, destroy everything. The Veltar fleet opened up with everything they had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, molecular disruptors, and gravity bombs filled space with deadly energy. For a moment, Zephas thought they had the advantage. His weapons were the most advanced in the galaxy. Then the humans replied, space filled with projectiles moving at incredible speeds. But these weren't just metal rods. Some were streams of ball bearings that tore through Veltar hulls like cosmic shotgun blasts. Others were asteroids that had been hollowed out and packed with fusion bombs, guided by computer systems more advanced than anything the Veltar possessed. They're using kinetic weapons, his science officer reported in amazement. Pure kinetic energy at relativistic speeds. They've turned simple physics into the most deadly weapons in the galaxy. A new type of weapon appeared on the sensors. Something was pulling at the fabric of space itself near 3 of his frigates. The ships began to stretch and distort as an artificial gravity field tore them apart at the molecular level. They have gravity weapons, the science officer whispered. They're using black holes as ammunition. But what horrified Zephas most wasn't the technology, it was the psychology behind it. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to send a message. Every weapon they used was designed to be as terrifying as possible. When Veltar warriors tried to board human ships, they found crews who had rigged their own vessels to explode rather than be captured. Human pilots rammed their small fighters into Veltar dreadnoughts while singing something their translators couldn't properly interpret. The communication channels filled with sounds the Veltar had never heard before. Human crews were broadcasting the screams of dying Veltar warriors, mixed with what sounded like primitive war songs and battle cries. The psychological effect was devastating. Veltar soldiers enhanced with fear suppression implants began to panic. Admiral, his communications officer called out, "We're losing ships faster than we can count them. The humans are using weapons we've never seen before. They're hacking our systems and turning our own guns against us." On the tactical display, Red dots representing Veltar ships were disappearing one by one. The humans weren't just fighting them. They were hunting them down with systematic precision. Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the TDFS Defiant found his ship surrounded by 5 Veltar frigates. His engines were damaged, his weapons were nearly out of ammunition, and Veltar warriors were cutting through his hull. Rodriguez looked at his crew and made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "Set the reactor to overload," he ordered calmly. "All hands, it's been an honor serving with you." His communications officer opened a channel to Earth. "Tell my kids Daddy kept the monsters away," Rodriguez said. Then he activated the self-destruct. The explosion vaporized all 5 Veltar frigates and sent a shockwave that damaged 3 more ships. But what shook Zephys to his core wasn't the destruction. It was the fact that the human had smiled as he did it. "These humans are insane," his tactical officer whispered. "They fight like animals backed into a corner." "No," Zephys said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn on him. "They fight like apex predators protecting their territory." On the tactical display, more than half his fleet was gone. The survivors were scattered across the system, being hunted down by human ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. His mighty invasion force was being systematically destroyed by a species he had thought was primitive. "Admiral," his aide said, quietly, "perhaps we should consider retreat." Zephys looked at the carnage on his screens. The humans had weapons that defied everything the Veltar knew about physics. They had tactics that turned every piece of space debris into a weapon. They had a psychology that made them prefer death to defeat, but retreat would mean admitting that the mighty Veltar had been beaten by a species that still used chemical rockets. It would mean the end of the Supremacy's reputation as an unstoppable force. "No," Zephys said firmly. "We continue to Earth. Whatever these humans are, they cannot have unlimited resources. We will break through their defenses and claim their world." But even as he gave the order, Zephys felt something he had never experienced before in 4 decades of conquest. For the first time in his life, the High Admiral of the Veltar Supremacy was afraid, and they hadn't even reached Earth yet. The battle moved deeper into the Sol system, and with every passing hour, Admiral Zephys learned horrible new truths about human warfare. The Veltar had fought dozens of species across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared them for this. Most civilized species fought according to established rules. They used energy weapons, deployed defensive shields, and followed predictable tactical patterns. The Veltar had built their military doctrine around these expectations. But humans didn't fight like civilized beings. They fought like the predators they truly were. "Admiral, we're detecting massive movement in the asteroid belt," his sensor officer reported. "It looks like the humans are redirecting asteroids toward our fleet." Zephys watched the tactical display in growing horror. The humans weren't just moving a few small rocks. They were redirecting entire asteroids, some of them several kilometers wide, and accelerating them to incredible speeds using methods his scientists couldn't understand. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Those asteroids mass millions of tons each." His science officer studied the readings with trembling hands. "Sir, they appear to have hollowed out the asteroids and installed fusion drives inside them. But the power requirements should be impossible with their technology level." The first asteroid weapon arrived 20 minutes later. The VTS destroyer tried to evade, but something that massive moving that fast couldn't be avoided. The impact was like watching a moon collide with a ship. The destroyer and 3 nearby frigates simply vanished in a flash of light and debris. But the asteroid wasn't finished. The explosion revealed that it had been packed with fusion warheads. The secondary blast took out 2 more ships and damaged 5 others. "They turned an asteroid into a guided missile," Zephys whispered. "What kind of species does that?" His answer came from an intercepted human transmission. 2 human ships were coordinating an attack on his remaining dreadnoughts, and their casual conversation chilled him to his core. "Ranger 7, this is Ranger 3. We've got 2 big ugly ones heading for Luna. Want to try the new gravity bombs?" "Affirmative, Ranger 3. Let's see if we can make them dance." The humans deployed weapons that Zephys's science teams insisted were theoretical impossibilities. Portable gravity generators created miniature black holes that lasted just long enough to tear Veltar ships apart. The humans would drop one of these weapons near an enemy vessel, watch it get stretched like rubber, then collapse the field and move on to the next target. This is not possible, his chief scientist reported frantically. They're manipulating fundamental forces like toys. Our most advanced research teams haven't even begun to understand gravitational manipulation. But it wasn't just the impossible technology that broke Veltar morale. It was the way humans used it. They didn't just destroy enemy ships. They played with them first. When Veltar warriors tried to board human vessels, they found crews who had prepared surprises that defied military logic. Human ships were rigged with explosive charges in every corridor. Automatic systems fired streams of projectiles through their own hulls to stop boarders. Human defenders used their own atmosphere as a weapon, flooding compartments with poisonous gas while wearing protective gear. Captain Vextal of the VTS Punisher managed to fight his way to the bridge of a human ship called the TDFS Resilient. He expected to find a command crew cowering in fear. Instead, he found 20 humans calmly working at their stations while their ship fell apart around them. "Surrender!" Vextal roared, his translation device making his words understood. "Your ship is lost." The human captain, a gray-haired woman with scars across her face, looked up from her command console and smiled. "You're right. Our ship is lost. But so are you." She pressed a button, and Vextal realized that the humans had been using their own ship as bait. The Resilient was packed with enough explosives to take out everything within 1,000 kilometers. The human crew had lured 3 Veltar ships close, then triggered a controlled supernova. The last thing Vextal heard was the humans singing something their computers translated as "Amazing Grace." They were singing as they prepared to die. Back on his flagship, Zephys tried to understand what he was seeing. They're using their own ships as weapons. They're sacrificing themselves deliberately. "It's worse than that, sir," his intelligence officer reported. "We've been monitoring their communications. These aren't desperate last stands. This is coordinated strategy. They call it acceptable losses. And they've calculated exactly how many of their own people they're willing to sacrifice to stop us." The tactical display showed the horrible mathematics of human warfare. For every Veltar ship destroyed, the humans were willing to lose 2 of their own. But human ships were smaller and had smaller crews. The exchange rate was devastating for the Veltar. "They're treating this like a business transaction," Zephys said in amazement. "They've decided that stopping us is worth a specific price in human lives, and they're paying it without hesitation." More intercepted transmissions revealed the true scope of human coordination. Unlike the Veltar, who fought as a single unified force, humans seemed to come from different nations and organizations. But instead of weakening them, this diversity made them stronger. "Attention all vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Russian kinetic platforms are reporting ammunition low. Japanese quantum computers are redirecting targeting to European laser batteries. Australian crews are standing by for ramming actions." Zephys realized that the entire human species had united against his invasion. Every nation, every organization, every individual human had become part of a single war machine focused on one goal: stopping the Veltar. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving tactical data from our remaining ships. The humans aren't just fighting us, they're studying us. Every time we use a weapon, they adapt. Every time we try a new tactic, they counter." Within minutes, the humans had turned the battle into a laboratory. They were learning from every engagement, sharing information instantly across their entire fleet, and developing countermeasures in real time. When the Veltar used quantum disruptors, the humans deployed quantum field generators. When Veltar ships tried to use stealth technology, human sensors adapted to new detection methods. But the most terrifying aspect of human warfare wasn't their technology or tactics. It was their psychology. Intercepted human communications revealed that they weren't fighting with the cold efficiency of a military machine. They were fighting with the passionate fury of a species defending its young. "This is Sergeant Williams in Delta Company. My daughter asked me to bring her back a star from space. I'm going to rip one off that big ship over there." "Pilot Chen here. My grandmother survived the Beijing bombing in the last war," she told me never to let anyone hurt our family again. Today, humanity is my family. Engineering Chief Rodriguez reporting. My nephew wants to be an astronaut when he grows up. These aliens are not going to take his future away. Every human seemed to have personal reasons for fighting that went beyond military duty. They fought for their children, their families, their hopes for the future. This made them unpredictable and absolutely ruthless. When ammunition ran low, human crews used pieces of their own ships as projectiles. When weapons failed, they rammed enemy vessels while broadcasting messages to their families. When all seemed lost, they smiled and sang and died in ways that traumatized Veltar warriors, who had conquered dozens of worlds. Admiral, his aide said quietly, we've lost 70% of the fleet. The surviving ships are scattered across the system. Our warriors are requesting permission to retreat. Zephys looked at the tactical display. Red dots representing his ships were disappearing faster than his computers could track. The humans had weapons that violated known physics, tactics that defied military logic, and a psychology that turned every individual into a willing sacrifice for the whole. But retreat was still impossible. The Veltar supremacy's reputation depended on victory. If word spread that humans had defeated them, every species in the galaxy would see the Veltar as weak. Their empire would collapse within years. We continue to Earth, Zephys ordered. Ready the planet-killer weapons. If we cannot conquer this world, we will destroy it completely. But even as he gave the order, Zephys felt a cold certainty growing in his chest. He had thought he was fighting primitive humans with simple technology. Instead, he had discovered the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, a species that had spent centuries preparing for exactly this type of invasion. The humans hadn't just built weapons, they had built a philosophy of warfare that turned every disadvantage into an advantage, every defeat into a victory, and every death into inspiration for the survivors. And he was about to learn what they had prepared for his final, desperate gambit. As the surviving Veltar ships limped toward Earth, Admiral Zephys discovered that everything he thought he knew about the human homeworld was wrong. The planet that had seemed defenseless from a distance was actually the most heavily fortified world in galactic history. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, voice shaking. You need to see this. The moon. It's not natural. The tactical display zoomed in on Earth's satellite. What had appeared to be a normal rocky moon was revealing its true nature as the Veltar fleet approached. Massive sections of the lunar surface were sliding away, revealing weapons that made Zephys's blood run cold. Those are dark matter cannons, his science officer whispered. Concentrated dark matter beams. They could erase matter at the quantum level. The moon opened fire. Beams of pure nothingness lanced out from hidden weapons bays, and wherever they touched Veltar ships, those ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but completely removed from reality as if they had never been built. The frigate VTS Vengeance took a direct hit from a dark matter beam. For a split second, the ship was there. Then it wasn't. The space where it had been floating was completely empty, without even debris to mark its passing. How many weapons are on that moon? Zephys demanded. His tactical computer ran calculations and returned numbers that seemed impossible. Sir, the entire moon appears to be hollow. It's not a natural satellite. It's a weapons platform the size of a small world. But Luna Base was just the beginning. As the Veltar fleet moved closer to Earth, the planet revealed defense systems that defied every assumption about human technology. Massive structures rose from Earth's surface like metal mountains. Space elevators, his computer identified them. But these weren't simple transportation systems. They were launch tubes for weapons that turned the planet itself into a gun. Incoming projectiles from the surface, the sensor officer reported. Thousands of them. Earth's space elevators fired streams of projectiles in continuous volleys. Metal rods, fusion warheads, and stranger weapons rose from the planet's surface at impossible speeds. The electromagnetic launch systems accelerated them to significant fractions of light speed before they even left the atmosphere. They've turned their entire planet into a fortress, Zephys realized. Every city, every installation, every piece of infrastructure is part of their defense network. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. "This is your last warning, Admiral Zephys. You've seen what we can do with improvised weapons at the edge of our system. Now you're approaching our real defenses. Turn back or face the consequences." Zephys opened a channel to reply. "Human, you cannot possibly defend an entire planet against planet-killer weapons. We have antimatter bombs that can crack worlds in half." "We know," Chen replied calmly. "We've been preparing for that possibility for 300 years. The transmission cut off, and suddenly Zephys understood the true horror of his situation. The humans hadn't just built weapons to fight invaders. They had studied every recorded alien invasion in galactic history, and prepared specific countermeasures for each type of attack. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system." "Whatever. The humans are preparing. It's drawing power from their star itself." Solar focusing arrays became visible as they unfolded from hidden positions around the inner planets. Mirrors the size of continents began directing the sun's energy into coherent beams. The humans had weaponized their own star. "They can channel the sun's output into directed energy weapons," the science officer reported in amazement. "The power levels are beyond anything we've ever recorded." But it wasn't just the impossible technology that broke Zephys's remaining confidence. It was the realization that humanity had been waiting for this exact scenario. Earth's defense network wasn't hastily assembled. It was the product of centuries of planning, preparation, and industrial effort. Every piece of technology, every defensive position, every tactical doctrine had been designed with one purpose: stopping exactly the kind of invasion Zephys was attempting. "They know about our quantum processors," his technology specialist reported. "They've deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons specifically designed to disrupt our neural implants. They know about our molecular disruptors and have developed quantum field generators to neutralize them. They know about our stealth technology and have sensors that can detect us anyway." The humans had studied the Veltar military doctrine in detail. Every weapon, every tactic, every technological advantage the Veltar possessed had a specific human countermeasure waiting for it. "How is this possible?" Zephys demanded. "We've never fought humans before. How could they know so much about our capabilities?" His intelligence officer pulled up intercepted human data files. "Sir, they've been studying every species in the galaxy. They have detailed analyses of 43 different military doctrines, including ours. They've war-gamed every possible invasion scenario and prepared responses for each one." "Admiral," Chen's voice returned to the communication system, but this time she wasn't speaking to Zephys. She was coordinating the final phase of Earth's defense, and what she revealed made Zephys realize the true scale of human preparation. "All defense sectors, this is command. The enemy is approaching phase line Alpha. Initiate Protocol 7. Repeat, initiate Protocol 7. Across Earth's surface, hidden installations activated. The planet's magnetic field began to shift and change, forming a containment system that trapped Veltar ships like insects in amber. The humans had weaponized the very forces that protected their world from cosmic radiation. "They're using their magnetic field as a cage," the navigation officer reported. "Our ships can't maneuver properly. Something is interfering with our propulsion systems." Zephys watched his remaining vessels struggle against invisible forces. The humans had turned their planet's natural defenses into weapons that could disable ships without firing a shot. But the most terrifying revelation came when Chen revealed humanity's ultimate deterrent. "Admiral Zephys," her voice was calm and professional, "you should know that Earth's sun is currently targeted by 27 solar manipulation devices. If our planet falls, we have the ability to trigger a controlled nova that will sterilize this entire system. We call it the Samson Protocol." Zephys felt something cold and sharp in his chest. "You would destroy your own world to stop us?" "We would destroy everything within 50 light-years to stop you," Chen replied. "And we've made sure every species in the galaxy knows it. Attack Earth, and we all die together. That's the price of threatening humanity's home." The tactical display showed the horrible truth. The humans hadn't just prepared to defend Earth. They had prepared to turn their entire solar system into a weapon that would eliminate any force threatening them, even if it meant their own extinction. "They're not just defending their planet," his aide whispered. They're willing to commit species suicide rather than be conquered. Zephas realized that he wasn't fighting a normal military force. He was fighting a species that had decided their freedom was worth any price, including their own lives. The humans would rather die as free beings than live as slaves. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we have 3 ships left operational. The rest of the fleet is gone." 3 ships. From 200 that had entered the system. The mighty Veltar supremacy had been reduced to a handful of survivors by a species they had thought was primitive. "We still have the planet-killer weapons," Zephas said desperately. "We can destroy their world and claim victory through genocide." But even as he spoke, Zephas knew it was too late. The humans had shown him the truth. They weren't a primitive species that could be conquered through superior firepower. They were the galaxy's apex predators, and they had been waiting patiently for someone foolish enough to test them. Earth hung before them like a blue-green jewel, beautiful and deadly. Behind it, the sun burned with the promise of controlled destruction. Around it, weapons platforms waited silently for the command to end everything. Zephas had come to conquer a backward world. Instead, he had found the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, and it was about to teach him the final lesson in the consequences of arrogance. Admiral Zephas stood in the ruins of his command bridge, surrounded by sparking equipment and the bodies of his crew. 3 ships remained from his mighty fleet of 200. The humans had systematically destroyed everything else with weapons that violated the laws of physics and tactics that defied military logic. But Zephas still had one final card to play. Hidden in the cargo holds of his remaining ships were 12 antimatter bombs, each one capable of cracking a planet in half. If he couldn't conquer Earth, he would destroy it and claim victory through genocide. "Prepare the planet-killer weapons," he ordered his surviving crew. "Launch them at maximum velocity toward the human world. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who resist the Veltar." His weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, if we destroy Earth, we'll have nothing to show for this campaign except dead worlds." "Then we'll have a message," Zephas snarled. "No species defies the Veltar and survives. Better a dead world than a living one that thinks it defeated us." The antimatter bombs launched from his ships like dark meteors, accelerating toward Earth at tremendous speed. Each weapon carried enough destructive force to turn continents into glass and boil oceans into steam. Zephas felt grim satisfaction as he watched them streak toward the blue-green planet. But his satisfaction lasted exactly 47 seconds. Earth's response to the planet-killer weapons revealed the final, most terrifying aspect of human nature. When faced with complete extinction, humans didn't despair or surrender. They adapted. Admiral Chen's voice crackled across all communication frequencies, calm and professional, despite the apocalyptic weapons heading toward her world. "All civilian populations, this is Defense Command. We have incoming planet killers. Evacuation protocols are in effect. Military personnel, prepare for interception operations." Across Earth's surface, massive dome structures rose from hidden underground positions. Entire cities disappeared beneath protective shields that could withstand the heat of stars. The humans had prepared for this exact scenario. But the domes weren't their real defense against the antimatter bombs. That came from an entirely different direction. "Launch the volunteers," Chen ordered. From bases on Earth, Luna, and Mars, small, one-person ships began launching toward the incoming weapons. These weren't military vessels armed with advanced weapons. They were simple interceptors with just enough fuel to reach the antimatter bombs and basic communication equipment. Zephas watched in growing horror as he realized what the humans were doing. "They're sending pilots to ram our weapons. They're using manned spacecraft as interceptors." "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving transmissions from the interceptor pilots." The voice that came through the speakers belonged to a young human male, calm and determined despite flying toward certain death. "This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison in Interceptor 7. I can see the big ugly bomb heading for New York. That's where my sister lives." "Not today, alien, not today." The interceptor ship, barely larger than a fighter craft, rammed into the antimatter bomb at tremendous speed. The collision triggered a controlled detonation far from Earth, lighting up space like a small sun. "Lieutenant, Morrison and his ship vanished in the explosion, but his sacrifice had saved millions of lives. More voices joined the communications channels as other interceptor pilots approached their targets. "This is Captain Sarah Kim. My parents live in Seoul. See you in the next life, aliens. Pilot Chen here. My daughter just started school yesterday. She's going to get the chance to graduate. This is Commander Rodriguez. For Earth, for humanity, for the future." One by one, human pilots flew their ships into antimatter bombs, triggering controlled detonations that lit up the solar system. Each pilot knew they wouldn't survive, yet hundreds volunteered. Their final transmissions revealed the psychology that made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They weren't just fighting for military victory. They were fighting for their families, their children, their dreams of the future. Every pilot had personal reasons that made death preferable to defeat. "How many volunteers did they have?" Zephys whispered, watching the last antimatter bomb destroyed by a pilot who sang something called Country Roads as he died. His intelligence officer checked the intercepted communications. "Sir, they had over 3,000 volunteers for 12 interception missions. They had to turn people away. 3,000 humans willing to die to save their world. The mighty Veltar, enhanced with fear suppression technology and trained from birth for war, could barely comprehend such dedication. But the humans weren't finished. With the planet killer threat neutralized, they turned their attention to Zephys's remaining ships. The pursuit craft that emerged from Earth weren't massive dreadnoughts or heavily armed cruisers. They were small, fast vessels designed for one purpose: hunting down survivors. "They're not trying to capture us," his tactical officer reported. "They're hunting us for sport." The human pursuit ships moved like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks with cold precision. They disabled Zephys's engines first, then his weapons, then his life support systems. They wanted him alive. "Admiral," his aide said quietly, "they're demanding our surrender. They want to put us on trial." Zephys looked at the tactical display showing his 2 remaining ships, crippled and surrounded by human vessels. The mighty Veltar supremacy had been reduced to war criminals awaiting judgment. "I am High Admiral Zephys of the Veltar supremacy," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I do not surrender to primitives." Admiral Chen's response came immediately. "You're not surrendering to primitives, Admiral. You're surrendering to the species that just exterminated your entire invasion force with minimal losses. Your choice is simple. Surrender now or we'll take you by force." The boarding parties that cut through his hull weren't the savage barbarians Zephys expected. They were professional soldiers wearing advanced armor and carrying weapons that made Veltar technology look primitive. They moved with the precision of a species that had been preparing for this moment for centuries. Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Marines removed her helmet as she entered Zephys's command center. Her face was young, but her eyes held the cold determination of a born predator. "Admiral Zephys," she said politely, "you're under arrest for crimes against humanity and violations of galactic law. You have the right to remain silent, though I doubt you'll use it." Zephys was transported to Luna Base for trial. The courtroom was filled with representatives from species across the galaxy, all of them watching to see what humanity would do with their defeated enemy. Admiral Chen served as both prosecutor and judge. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of absolute authority. "Admiral Zephys, you were warned by 43 different species to stay away from Earth. You ignored those warnings and brought a fleet of 200 ships to conquer our world. Your actions resulted in the deaths of 200,000 Veltar personnel and 50,000 human defenders." Zephys stood in shackles, his biomechanical armor removed and his implants disabled. For the first time in his life, he looked small and powerless. "I was following the military doctrine of the Veltar supremacy," he said. "We are conquerors. It is our nature." "Your nature," Chen replied coldly, "brought about the extinction of your species." She activated a holographic display showing the Veltar homeworld. 3 hours ago, your government received a complete recording of this battle, along with detailed technical specifications of human weapons. The message we sent was simple. Your fleet is gone, your admiral is captured, your supremacy is ended. The hologram showed Veltar cities in chaos as the news spread. Government buildings burned. Military installations were abandoned. Civilian populations fled in panic as they realized their invincible military had been completely destroyed by a single human world. The Veltar supremacy collapsed within hours of receiving our message, Chen continued. Your subject species have rebelled. Your military has disbanded, your empire is gone, all because you were too arrogant to listen to warnings. Zephas felt something break inside his chest. His species, his empire, his entire way of life had been destroyed not by military conquest, but by the simple demonstration that the Veltar were not invincible. What will you do with me? He asked quietly. Chen considered for a moment. You'll spend the rest of your life in a comfortable prison, Admiral. We're not monsters. But you'll also serve as a living reminder of what happens when someone ignores our warnings. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species that had ever considered challenging humanity watched as the mighty Veltar Empire collapsed, overnight. The message was clear. The warnings around Earth weren't suggestions. They were promises. 6 months later, new warning beacons were placed around the Sol system. The message was updated and broadcast in 67 languages. This system is defended by humanity. They offered mercy once. They will not offer it again. The Veltar tested them and achieved extinction. Turn back now, or join them in the history books. In the years that followed, no species ever again tested Earth's defenses. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The warnings weren't there to protect humans from alien invaders. They were there to protect the galaxy from humanity. Admiral Zephas spent his remaining years in a cell on Luna Base, looking up at the blue-green world that had destroyed his empire. Sometimes, late at night, he could hear human children laughing in the corridors above his prison. They were the children of the pilots who had died stopping his planet-killer weapons. Children who would grow up free because their parents had been willing to pay any price to stop him. And in those moments, Zephas finally understood what the galaxy had tried to warn him about. Humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were the guardians of their own future, and they would destroy anyone who tried to take that future away. The warnings had been real, the consequences had been absolute, and the price of arrogance had been extinction. The Starship Venture glided silently through the darkness near Saturn's magnificent rings. John Miller stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes scanning the viewscreens. After 20 years as an astronaut, this mission was the pinnacle of his career, humanity's first deep space expedition beyond the asteroid belt. But more than professional pride filled his heart. He turned to watch his 10-year-old daughter Kate, who floated beside the science station with wide, excited eyes. Dad. Look, you can see the ice particles in the rings from here, Kate said, her small finger pointing at the glittering display. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail that floated slightly in the low-gravity section of the bridge. John smiled. Kate was one of 12 children selected for the Educational Frontier program, bringing the brightest young minds on this historic journey. Some had questioned bringing children into deep space, but Earth wanted this mission to represent humanity's future, not just its present. It's beautiful, isn't it? John replied. We're the first humans to see this with our own eyes. Captain, Laura Winters approached them, her uniform crisp despite 3 months in space. Commander Miller, long-range sensors are picking up something unusual near Titan. John straightened immediately. Unusual how? Energy signatures like nothing we've recorded before. Too precise to be natural. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this might mean. Should I return to the classroom module, Dad? Kate asked quietly, sensing the change in mood. Before John could answer, Communications Officer Ben Harris called out, Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's not coming from Earth or any of our colonies. Captain Winters took a deep breath. On screen, the main display flickered, then filled with an image that would forever change human history. A being with gray-blue skin and 4 eyes stared back at them. Its face was angular, almost reptilian, with no visible hair. Behind it stood others of its kind, working at stations that glowed with strange symbols. "We are the Jarkul," the being spoke in a surprisingly clear voice somehow translated into English. "You have entered space claimed by our empire." Captain Winters stepped forward. "I am Captain Laura Winters of the Earth ship Venture. We come in peace seeking friendship with other intelligent species." The alien's upper eyes narrowed. "Your species is unknown to us. Explain your technological capabilities and armaments." John placed a protective hand on Kate's shoulder, feeling suddenly uneasy. "We are explorers," Captain Winters replied carefully. "Our ship carries minimal defensive capabilities. We seek knowledge, not conflict." The alien conferred with others off-screen, speaking in clicks and hisses their translator couldn't process. When it returned its attention to them, all four eyes had hardened. "Our scans detect primitive weapons technology. You claim to be peaceful, yet come armed. The Jarkul Empire has ruled this sector for 10,000 years. New species must be properly evaluated before contact is permitted." 3 more alien ships appeared on their sensors surrounding the Venture. "Sir," Security Chief Greg Patel said quietly to Captain Winters, "they've locked weapons on us." Captain Winters tried again. "We meant no offense. We didn't know this space was claimed. We're a young species taking our first steps beyond our solar system." "Captain," Chief Engineer Maria Diaz called from her station. "They're scanning us deeply. They're accessing our databases." The alien commander's expression changed subtly. "Your records indicate your species is aggressive, territorial, and technologically advancing at an unusual rate. This combination requires careful management." Without warning, energy beams lanced out from the nearest Jarkul ship, striking the Venture's main communications array. "Return fire," Captain Winters ordered as the ship shuddered. "Weapons only at 30% capacity," Chief Patel responded, firing the ship's limited defenses. John grabbed Kate. "Emergency Protocol 7, all civilians to escape pods." Alarms blared throughout the ship as John rushed Kate toward the nearest evacuation point where other children and non-essential personnel were gathering. "I'm scared, Dad," Kate whispered, as he strapped her into an escape pod designed to return to Earth automatically. "It'll be okay," John promised, kissing her forehead. "These pods are stealthy. They'll slip away while we keep the aliens busy. I'll see you back home." "Promise?" Kate asked, tears floating from her eyes in the zero gravity. "Promise," John said, firmly, forcing himself to smile before sealing her pod. He watched through the small window as Kate's pod and 11 others ejected from the Venture, small stealth systems engaging to hide them from detection. Then he raced back to the bridge. The battle was going poorly. The Venture was a research vessel with minimal weapons, never designed for combat against advanced alien technology. "Status?" John demanded as he returned to his station. "Engines at 60%. Shields failing," Captain Winters reported grimly. "We managed to damage one of their smaller vessels." "The civilian pods?" John asked. "Away clean," Chief Patel confirmed. "Stealth systems functioning. Wait." His face paled as he stared at his console. "Sir, they've detected the pods." John's blood turned to ice. "No." On the view screen, they watched in horror as one of the Jarkul ships broke off pursuit and turned toward the fleeing escape pods. "They're just children," Captain Winters shouted into the communication channel. "Non-combatants, please!" The alien commander's face reappeared on screen. "Young or not, we have studied your history. Your species grows to become warriors. The Jarkul Empire prevents threats before they mature." John stood frozen as the Jarkul ship fired precisely at the escape pods. One by one, the small vessels exploded in silent bursts of light and debris. "Kate!" The scream tore from John's throat as he watched Pod 7, Kate's pod, disintegrate. In that moment, something changed in every human on the bridge. Captain Winters' voice turned to steel as she ordered, "All power to engines. Get us out of here. Someone needs to survive to tell Earth what happened here today." The battered Venture managed a desperate burst of speed, just enough to break free from the Jarkul ships. As they fled toward Earth, Engineer Diaz worked frantically to boost their engines beyond designed limits. John sat motionless at his station, staring at the last recorded images of the escape pod's destruction. The crew worked around him in grim silence, all of them understanding that this day would change humanity's future forever. 2 weeks later, the damaged Venture limped back to Earth orbit. They brought with them footage of first contact, the unprovoked attack, and most importantly, the deliberate destruction of 12 escape pods carrying the brightest children of Earth. As the news spread across the planet, a single question formed in the minds of billions. How would humanity respond to the empire that had slaughtered its children? John Miller, carrying the small backpack Kate had brought aboard the Venture, walked down the landing ramp to where his wife Susan waited. When their eyes met, no words were needed. They embraced in silent grief as cameras flashed around them. The image of their embrace would soon appear on recruitment posters worldwide, beneath words that would launch humanity's response. They took one of ours. We'll take all of theirs. Susan Miller stood at the window of her office at the newly formed Earth Defense Command. Rain streaked down the glass, matching the tears she had shed for weeks after learning about Kate. But today, her eyes were dry. It had been 3 months since the Venture returned with its terrible news. 3 months since she had held her husband John as they both broke down on the landing pad. 3 months since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe, and that the universe was hostile. Susan turned away from the window and faced the wall covered with photos of the 12 children who had died. Kate's smile beamed from the center picture. She had been so proud to be selected for the mission, so excited to see the stars up close. Now her name had become a rallying cry across Earth. The door opened, and President Olivia Wright entered. The weight of recent events showed in the dark circles under her eyes. The United Nations Security Council has approved your proposal, President Wright said without preamble. Project Retribution begins today. Susan nodded. As Earth's foremost military strategist, she had spent the last 2 months developing plans that would have seemed insane before the attack. Now nothing seemed too extreme. The public is still in shock, President Wright continued, sitting heavily in the chair across from Susan's desk. But they're united in a way I've never seen. Every nation has pledged resources. Old enemies are cooperating. It's unprecedented. The Jarkul made a mistake, Susan said, her voice calm and cold. They thought killing our children would frighten us into submission. Instead, they've united us. President Wright looked up at the wall of photos. Do you think we have a chance against them? Their technology is clearly superior. For now, Susan replied. But we have something they don't understand. What's that? A reason to fight that goes beyond territory or resources. They killed our children. Susan tapped a button on her desk, bringing up holographic displays of designs that had been developed in the weeks since the attack. And we've learned from them already. Our scientists analyzed every second of footage from the Venture. We know more about their weapons and shields than they realize. The door opened again, and Admiral Frank Carter walked in. The former Navy SEAL had been appointed to lead Earth's new space fleet. Dr. Peterson is ready with his presentation, he announced. President Wright stood. Let's see what he's come up with. They walked together to the large conference room where Dr. Alan Peterson waited. Once a theoretical physicist at MIT, he had been working day and night since the attack, driven by the memory of his niece who had been aboard the Venture. Madam President, Mrs. Miller, Admiral, he greeted, his tired eyes brightening as he gestured to the large holographic display. What you're looking at is our answer to Jarkul energy weapons. The display showed what looked like a modified version of the shields the aliens had used. We've reverse-engineered their basic principles from the sensor data, Dr. Peterson explained. Their weapons work on a frequency we've never encountered before, but once we understood the pattern, we found a way to counter it. How long until we can implement this? Admiral Carter asked. 6 months for prototypes, a year for full production. If we redirect 30% of global manufacturing, President Wright frowned. That's a massive economic shift. It's necessary, Susan said firmly. The Jarkul will return. They made that clear when they left. They see us as a potential threat to be eliminated. Admiral Carter nodded in agreement. We intercepted communications from their ships before they left our system. Our linguistics team has been working on translations. They called us primitive but dangerous. They're planning to return with a larger force. Then we need to be ready, President Wright decided. Dr. Peterson, you'll have everything you need. As they left the meeting, John Miller was waiting in the hallway. Once Earth's most celebrated astronaut, now he was the face of humanity's grief and determination. His testimony about the attack, about watching helplessly as his daughters escape, pod was destroyed, had moved billions to tears, and then to action. They've approved everything, Susan told him quietly as they walked together. All of it. John nodded. He had lost weight since returning to Earth, and his once friendly eyes now held a hardness that never faded. I've been working with the pilot training program. We have 10,000 volunteers already. For ships we haven't even built yet, Susan noted. They'll be built, John said with certainty. Have you seen what's happening at the lunar bases? They've tripled in size. The shipyards are taking shape ahead of schedule. They entered a vast control room where hundreds of people worked at stations monitoring space for any sign of the Jarkul return. On the largest screen was a map of Earth's solar system, with a defensive plan slowly taking shape. Lisa Bennett, the lead AI specialist, approached them with a tablet. The new detection system is online, she reported. If anything larger than a meter enters our solar system, we'll know immediately. Good, Susan replied. What about the combat simulations? Lisa gestured to a side screen where virtual ships fought in digital space. The AI is learning from what little we know of their tactics. It's not much, but it's a start. Across the room, Major Steve Howard was drilling a team in new combat techniques. They have 4 eyes and better peripheral vision, he was saying. That means our usual flanking approaches won't work. We need to think differently. Susan watched it all with grim satisfaction. Everywhere she looked, humans were adapting, learning, preparing. The Jarkul thought they had encountered a primitive species that would cower in fear after a show of force. Instead, they had awakened something they couldn't understand. Later that night, Susan and John sat in their kitchen, the house too quiet without Kate's laughter. They rarely spoke of their grief anymore. It had transformed into something else, something focused and sharp. I accessed more of the translated Jarkul communications today, Susan said as she pushed away her barely touched dinner. They've conquered over 100 species. They follow the same pattern each time. Identify developing civilizations, assess their threat level, then either destroy them entirely or subjugate them before they can become competitors. John's hand tightened around his glass. They've never met humans before. No, Susan agreed. They haven't. She pulled up a holographic display showing the latest designs for Earth's first true warship. It was sleek and deadly, incorporating everything they had learned from studying the enemy. The first one will be ready in 18 months, she said. We're calling it the Retribution. John looked at the display, then at the photo of Kate on their refrigerator. It's not enough to defend ourselves, he said quietly. They need to understand what they've done, what line they've crossed. Susan nodded, reaching across the table to take his hand. They will. The Jarkul Empire slaughtered a human child thinking we were too weak to respond. They're about to learn exactly what that means. Outside their window, the night sky was filled with more activity than ever before in human history. Rockets launched, hourly, carrying materials and workers to the growing lunar shipyards. Earth was preparing for war among the stars, united by grief and resolve. And somewhere in the galaxy, the Jarkul Empire remained unaware of the storm they had created, a storm named Kate. 1 year passed since the Jarkul attack. Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined before. The night sky above the lunar surface blazed with lights as thousands of workers moved about the massive shipyards hidden on the far side of the moon. Here, away from Earth and prying alien eyes, humanity built its response. Captain Eric Young stood at the observation deck, watching as the final sections of the Retribution were locked into place. The warship was unlike anything humans had built before. Sleek, dangerous, and filled with technology that had not existed a year ago. Impressive, isn't it? Dr. Alan Peterson joined him at the window. The physicist looked older now, his hair grayer, but his eyes shone with fierce pride. 1 year ago, I was teaching theoretical physics to college students. Now we're building starships. Captain Young nodded. How many ships will be ready for the first wave? 50 combat-ready vessels. By next month, another 100 in various stages of completion. Dr. Peterson pointed to the far end of the shipyard. The Miller Drive is performing beyond expectations in all tests. Our ships will be able to match Jarkul speeds. The Miller Drive, named after Kate, was Dr. Peterson's greatest achievement. By studying the sensor readings from the Venture, he had unlocked the secret to faster-than-light travel that the Jarkul used. What had taken alien civilizations centuries to develop, human desperation had mastered in months. On the other side of the shipyard, Major Steve Howard led his Special Forces team through another training exercise. For 12 months, they had trained relentlessly in simulated Jarkul environments, learning to fight an enemy with 4 eyes and different physical capabilities. Again, Major Howard shouted as his team cleared a mock alien vessel. Their vision range is wider than ours. Taylor, you're still entering their field of view too early. Private Sam Taylor nodded grimly and reset his position. Like everyone, in the Special Forces unit he had lost someone on the Venture. His younger brother had been one of the educational staff. Their unit patch bore the simple words, "Remember the 12, a reference to the children killed in the escape pods. Back on Earth in the buried command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Susan Miller reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The room around her had transformed from a hastily assembled crisis center to the heart of Earth's war machine. The Jarkul haven't returned to our system since the attack, Lisa Bennett reported. The AI specialist had created an early warning system that stretched far beyond Earth's previous capabilities. But we've detected increased communications between their outposts. Something is happening. Susan studied the star charts where they had mapped the Jarkul territory based on intercepted communications. They're preparing something. Have we made progress on their language? Yes, Lisa replied. Our AIs have analyzed all the communications we captured. We now understand about 70% of their standard language, enough to know they're discussing Earth. And, Susan pressed, they're calling us the primitives who resist classification. They seem confused by our silence. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. They expected us to either try making peace or to launch some small, desperate attack. They have no idea what we've been building. Susan nodded with grim satisfaction. The Jarkul Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had judged humanity by its current technology, not by its potential. They had shown their hand too early, given Earth a reason to unite, and then left them alone to prepare. Dr. Nicole Rogers wants to see you, Lisa added. She says she's found something important. Susan made her way to the biological research wing where Dr. Rogers, Earth's leading xenobiologist, waited with excitement barely contained on her face. We found their weakness, Dr. Rogers announced without preamble. She pulled up a holographic display of Jarkul physiology, constructed from the brief glimpses they had from the Venture's recordings. Their respiratory system can't handle certain compounds that are harmless to humans. If we can introduce this gas mixture to their ship environments, we can incapacitate them without firing a shot. Susan reviewed the data. Can we produce this in quantity? Already happening, Dr. Rogers confirmed. We'll have enough to outfit all Special Forces teams in 2 weeks. That evening, Susan joined her husband John for a rare dinner together. They met in the small apartment they had taken near the command center, neither of them able to face their family home with Kate's empty room. The Retribution will be ready for its first test flight next week, John told her. As head of pilot training, he had spent the past year teaching a new generation of astronauts to become warriors. They've asked me to be aboard. Susan looked up sharply. Is that necessary? I'm still one of the most experienced pilots we have, John said. His face had hardened over the past year, the grief channeled into purpose. And I need to be there, Susan, for Kate. Susan couldn't argue. She felt the same driving need. Every plan she developed, every strategy she created was fueled by the memory of their daughter's face. The Jarkul had taken Kate from them, thinking it would weaken humanity. Instead, it had focused Earth's response into something terrifying. A week later, the command center buzzed with activity as the Retribution prepared for its maiden voyage. On the main screen, the massive warship moved slowly out of the lunar shipyard, its sleek hull gleaming in the sunlight. "All systems green," reported the flight controller. "Miller Drive powering up." Susan watched with the entire command staff as the ship that represented humanity's future hovered above the lunar surface. Then in a flash of controlled energy it vanished, only to reappear 30 seconds later near Jupiter. The room erupted in cheers. The Miller Drive worked perfectly. Humanity could now travel through space at speeds that matched the Jarkul. The playing field had been leveled. "Time to move to the next phase," President Wright said, standing beside Susan. "How long until we're ready for Operation Kate's Justice?" 3 months, Susan replied. "We'll hit 5 of their outposts simultaneously. They won't know what's happening until it's too late." On the screen, the Retribution flashed back to lunar orbit, completing its first successful test. More ships would follow, each carrying the combined knowledge, determination, and fury of a planet that had watched its children die. As Susan looked around the room at the celebrating scientists, soldiers, and leaders, she realized that the Jarkul had made the most dangerous mistake possible. They had shown humans what they were facing, given them a reason to fight, and then left them alone to prepare. The Jarkul Empire had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They had never encountered a species that transformed fear into resolve. They had never met humans before, and as 50 warships prepared to launch in the coming months, Susan Miller knew that the galaxy was about to change forever. 5 years had passed since Kate Miller's death. Earth had chosen this day deliberately. The Jarkul would learn that humans remembered. The Retribution led a fleet of 50 warships through the darkness of space, each vessel carrying the combined knowledge, technology, and fury developed over those 5 years. Captain Eric Young stood on the bridge, looking at the holographic display of Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. Intelligence had confirmed that the Jarkul had established a major outpost there, believing humans couldn't detect it. "All ships. Report ready, Captain," First Officer Diane Bell announced. Every crew member on the bridge wore a small pin with Kate Miller's picture on it. "Operation Kate's Justice is awaiting your command," Captain Young nodded. "Send the message to all ships, then broadcast on all frequencies." Officer Bell tapped her console. "Ready, sir." "This is Captain Eric Young of the Earth vessel Retribution. To the Jarkul forces at Ganymede. 5 years ago you attacked an unarmed Earth ship and murdered 12 children. Today we return. Remember Kate Miller." He signaled to cut the transmission, then addressed the fleet. "All ships, engage Miller. Drives on my mark. Formation Alpha, 3-2-1 mark." In perfect synchronization, 50 Earth warships vanished from Earth orbit and reappeared around Ganymede. The Jarkul outpost, a sprawling base built into the moon's surface, immediately lit up with alarm signals. 7 Jarkul ships rose to meet them, but their movements showed confusion. They had expected primitive vessels, easy targets like the Venture had been. Instead, they faced ships that matched their technology, moved with coordinated precision, and carried weapons specifically designed to target Jarkul vulnerabilities. "They're hailing us," Officer Bell reported. "Ignore it," Captain Young ordered. "Deploy boarding teams to the main base. Target their engines only on the ships. We need prisoners and data." The Earth fleet moved with practiced precision. Special Forces teams led by Major Steve Howard launched toward the base while the Retribution and 5 other ships engaged the Jarkul vessels. Earth ships fired weapons that disrupted the aliens' shield frequencies, technology developed by studying the brief battle with the Venture. Inside his assault craft, Major Howard checked his team's equipment one last time. "Remember your training. Their vision gives them advantages we don't have, but we know about them. They know nothing about us. Use the gas grenades first, aim for their breathing apparatus." The assault craft docked with the Jarkul base, cutting through the outer hull. When the doors opened, Major Howard's team moved in with ruthless efficiency. The first Jarkul soldiers they encountered fired energy weapons, but the humans wore armor designed to disperse the energy. Dr. Peterson's team had done their work well. Gas grenades now, Major Howard ordered. His soldiers tossed small devices that released the compound Dr. Rogers had discovered, harmless to humans but devastating to Jarkul respiratory systems. The alien soldiers collapsed, gasping through their breathing masks. As they pushed deeper into the base, the team downloaded data from every console they passed. Lisa Bennett's AI programs translated and sorted the information instantly, sending it back to Earth. In space, the battle was equally one-sided. The Jarkul ships fought with increasing desperation as they realized their weapons weren't as effective as they should be. Captain Young directed the fleet with calm precision, disabling engines and weapons systems without destroying the vessels. "Sir," Officer Bell called, "we're detecting a power surge from their command ship. They may be preparing to self-destruct." "Target their power core with an EMP," Captain Young ordered. "I want that ship intact." The electromagnetic pulse hit the Jarkul command ship just as its core began to overload. The vessel went dark, drifting silently as emergency systems failed. "Boarding team ready," Officer Bell reported. "Send them in," Captain Young said. "I want their commander alive." Inside the Jarkul base, Major Howard's team had reached the Central Command Center. Most of the alien staff were unconscious from the gas, but the base commander remained standing, protected by a sealed environment suit. The four-eyed alien stared at the humans with a mixture of shock and rage. "How?" the commander demanded in his clicking language, now instantly translated by the programs Earth had developed. "You are primitives. You had only just reached your outer planets." Major Howard stepped forward. "You made a mistake. You killed our children." He nodded to his team, who secured the alien commander. Throughout the base and in orbit, the scene repeated as Earth forces captured Jarkul personnel and vessels. "The data is incredible," Lisa Bennett reported to Susan Miller back at Earth Command. Screens showed the battle in real time, transmitted through the new communication network humans had built. "We now have access to their entire database, star charts, technology schematics, records of other species they've conquered." Susan watched as the Earth ship secured their objectives with minimal losses. The plan she had developed over 5 years was working perfectly. "What about their homeworld?" she asked. Lisa pulled up a star chart. "We have its location and defenses. They never considered we might reach this far. There's more. They've been monitoring Earth for decades. They knew we were advancing quickly. The attack on the Venture wasn't random. They were testing us, planning to subjugate Earth before we became a threat." Susan's expression hardened. "They failed." On the Retribution, Captain Young received the final reports from all ships. 6 Jarkul vessels captured, 1 left partially functional, enough to limp back to their territory. The main base secured with minimal Earth casualties. "Send the message to the remaining Jarkul ship," he ordered. Officer Bell opened the channel. "Ready, sir." Captain Young looked directly at the camera, knowing his words would reach the Jarkul Empire. "You murdered our children and thought we would cower in fear. Instead, we prepared. This is only the beginning. We now know where every Jarkul world is located. We can strike any of them at will, but we are not like you. We offer one chance for peace. Representatives of Earth will meet with your leaders in 1 month at these coordinates. If you refuse or attempt any further aggression, what happened at Ganymede will seem merciful by comparison." He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. "Release the ship. Make sure they can reach their territory." The damaged Jarkul vessel limped away, carrying news that would shake the foundations of an empire that had known only victory for 10,000 years. As the Earth fleet secured their prisoners and prepared to return home, John Miller received the news in his quarters on the lunar base. He looked at the photo of Kate on his desk, then at the star chart showing Jarkul territory. "We did it, Kate," he whispered. "They know who we are now." Across the solar system, humanity celebrated their first victory. But everyone understood, this was only the beginning. The Jarkul Empire had ruled through fear for millennia. Now they were learning what it meant to feel fear themselves. 5 years had passed since Kate Miller's death. Earth had chosen this day deliberately. The Jarkul would learn that humans remembered. The Retribution led a fleet of 50 warships through the darkness of space, each vessel carrying the combined knowledge, technology, and fury developed over those 5 years. Captain Eric Young stood on the bridge, looking at the holographic display of Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. Intelligence had confirmed that the Jarkul had established a major outpost there, believing humans couldn't detect it. All ships. Report ready, Captain, First Officer Diane Bell announced. Every crew member on the bridge wore a small pin with Kate Miller's picture on it. Operation Kate's Justice is awaiting your command. Captain Young nodded. Send the message to all ships, then broadcast on all frequencies. Officer Bell tapped her console. Ready, sir. This is Captain Eric Young of the Earth vessel Retribution. To the Jarkul forces at Ganymede. 5 years ago, you attacked an unarmed Earth ship and murdered 12 children. Today, we return. Remember Kate Miller. He signaled to cut the transmission, then addressed the fleet. All ships, engage Miller. Drives on my mark. Formation Alpha, 321 mark. In perfect synchronization, 50 Earth warships vanished from Earth orbit and reappeared around Ganymede. The Jarkul outpost, a sprawling base built into the moon's surface, immediately lit up with alarm signals. 7 Jarkul ships rose to meet them, but their movements showed confusion. They had expected primitive vessels, easy targets like the Venture had been. Instead, they faced ships that matched their technology, moved with coordinated precision, and carried weapons specifically designed to target Jarkul vulnerabilities. They're hailing us, Officer Bell reported. Ignore it, Captain Young ordered. Deploy boarding teams to the main base. Target their engines only on the ships. We need prisoners and data. The Earth fleet moved with practiced precision. Special Forces teams led by Major Steve Howard launched toward the base while the Retribution and 5 other ships engaged the Jarkul vessels. Earth ships fired weapons that disrupted the aliens' shield frequencies, technology developed by studying the brief battle with the Venture. Inside his assault craft, Major Howard checked his team's equipment one last time. Remember your training. Their vision gives them advantages we don't have, but we know about them. They know nothing about us. Use the gas grenades first, aim for their breathing apparatus. The assault craft docked with the Jarkul base, cutting through the outer hull. When the doors opened, Major Howard's team moved in with ruthless efficiency. The first Jarkul soldiers they encountered fired energy weapons, but the humans wore armor designed to disperse the energy. Dr. Peterson's team had done their work well. Gas grenades now, Major Howard ordered. His soldiers tossed small devices that released the compound Dr. Rogers had discovered, harmless to humans but devastating to Jarkul respiratory systems. The alien soldiers collapsed, gasping through their breathing masks. As they pushed deeper into the base, the team downloaded data from every console they passed. Lisa Bennett's AI programs translated and sorted the information instantly, sending it back to Earth. In space, the battle was equally one-sided. The Jarkul ships fought with increasing desperation as they realized their weapons weren't as effective as they should be. Captain Young directed the fleet with calm precision, disabling engines and weapons systems without destroying the vessels. Sir, Officer Bell called. We're detecting a power surge from their command ship. They may be preparing to self-destruct. Target their power core with an EMP, Captain Young ordered. I want that ship intact. The electromagnetic pulse hit the Jarkul command ship just as its core began to overload. The vessel went dark, drifting silently as emergency systems failed. Boarding team ready, Officer Bell reported. Send them in, Captain Young said. I want their commander alive. Inside the Jarkul base, Major Howard's team had reached the Central Command Center. Most of the alien staff were unconscious from the gas, but the base commander remained standing, protected by a sealed environment suit. The four-eyed alien stared at the humans with a mixture of shock and rage. How? The commander demanded in his clicking language, now instantly translated by the programs Earth had developed. You are primitives. You had only just reached your outer planets. Major Howard stepped forward. You made a mistake. You killed our Children. He nodded to his team, who secured the alien commander. Throughout the base and in orbit, the scene repeated as Earth forces captured Jarkul personnel and vessels. "The data is incredible," Lisa Bennett reported to Susan Miller back at Earth Command. Screens showed the battle in real time, transmitted through the new communication network humans had built. "We now have access to their entire database, star charts, technology schematics, records of other species they've conquered." Susan watched as the Earth ships secured their objectives with minimal losses. The plan she had developed over 5 years was working perfectly. "What about their homeworld?" she asked. Lisa pulled up a star chart. "We have its location and defenses. They never considered we might reach this far. There's more. They've been monitoring Earth for decades. They knew we were advancing quickly. The attack on the Venture wasn't random. They were testing us, planning to subjugate Earth before we became a threat." Susan's expression hardened. "They failed." On the Retribution, Captain Young received the final reports from all ships. 6 Jarkul vessels captured, 1 left partially functional, enough to limp back to their territory. The main base secured with minimal Earth casualties. "Send the message to the remaining Jarkul ship," he ordered. Officer Bell opened the channel. "Ready, sir." Captain Young looked directly at the camera, knowing his words would reach the Jarkul Empire. "You murdered our children and thought we would cower in fear. Instead, we prepared. This is only the beginning. We now know where every Jarkul world is located. We can strike any of them at will, but we are not like you. We offer one chance for peace. Representatives of Earth will meet with your leaders in 1 month at these coordinates. If you refuse or attempt any further aggression, what happened at Ganymede will seem merciful by comparison." He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. "Release the ship. Make sure they can reach their territory." The damaged Jarkul vessel limped away, carrying news that would shake the foundations of an empire that had known only victory for 10,000 years. As the Earth fleet secured their prisoners and prepared to return home, John Miller received the news in his quarters on the lunar base. He looked at the photo of Kate on his desk, then at the star chart showing Jarkul territory. "We did it, Kate," he whispered. "They know who we are now." Across the solar system, humanity celebrated their first victory. But everyone understood, this was only the beginning. The Jarkul